When I started at the Principal Foundation, I was coming from a field that didn't have anything to do with providing humanitarian assistance to Christian Scientists. One question that was on my mind when I started was, would active Christian Scientists actually need something like the Principal Foundation? Would someone who's turning to God for answers in all aspects of their life need to call an organization to receive the practical humanitarian assistance? This led me to dive into the Bible and dive into Mrs. Eddy's writings to just look for examples, look for models. And if I find them and if they actually are there, then I know that everything I do to support this activity is based on a very solid foundation. So as I looked through the Bible, I picked up the Bible first, and I started seeing one example after another of humanitarian assistance. One of the examples I found in the Bible that really meant something to me was the account in Mark where these friends of a man who's sick of the palsy find out that Jesus has come to their town or their village, and they know that he's a great healer. And so they think, well, if we take our friend to Jesus, maybe he'll be healed. And in Mark we read, "And when they could not come nigh unto him for the press, they uncovered the roof where he was. And when they had broken it up, they let down the bed wherein the sick of the palsy lay. When Jesus saw their faith, he said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, thy sins be forgiven thee." The key to this passage from the Bible for me, and the link to the work of the Principal Foundation, is when it says that Jesus saw their faith. He wasn't looking at the faith of the man sick of the palsy on the stretcher. He was looking at the faith of the band of friends who fought through the crowd, who made the effort to climb up on the roof, to pull the roof back, and to lower their friend down because they had the faith that this great healer would help their friend. And that act of humanitarian assistance wasn't the metaphysical treatment of the man that led to his healing, but it was a practical demonstration that supported the process of healing. Another account in the Bible that meant a lot to me at that time is found in Acts chapter 3. And what you have here is an account of Peter and John going to the temple. And there's a man at the gate of the temple who calls to them asking for money, asking for financial support. And in the account in the Bible, "And Peter, fastening his eyes upon him with John, said, Look on us. And he gave heed unto them, expecting to receive something of them. And Peter said, Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have give I thee. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk. And he took him by the right hand and lifted him up, and immediately his feet and ankle bones received strength. And he, leaping up, stood and walked, and entered with them into the temple, walking and leaping and praising God." The thing that is interesting in how this relates to the Principal Foundation to me was the fact that someone in the community cared enough about this man who was lame to put him at the gate of the temple every day. And he was in a good position when Peter and John walked by. Now, he thought that what he needed was financial assistance, but what actually he received was much greater than money and much more meaningful. And of course, the wonderful outcome of that encounter with Peter and John is the first place he goes is church. So his healing not only restored his ability to walk, but it encouraged him to connect with his church again. Jesus gave us two great commandments, and I think these also lay a foundation for the activity of the Principal Foundation. In Matthew chapter 22, there's a lawyer that comes up to him and asks him a question, Master, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Now we know in the book, the Gospel of Luke, we have the account of the Good Samaritan. And in this account, a lawyer has again asked Jesus a question, who is my neighbor? You tell me I'm supposed to love my neighbor as myself, but who is this neighbor? And that's when Jesus gives the parable of the Good Samaritan. But the who is my neighbor goes back to the second great commandment. So in other words, this activity of caring for one another is fundamental to the practice of Christianity itself. If in order to be a Christian, in order to fulfill the two great commandments, you must care for one another. That compassionate, gentle, brotherly love that we are commanded to practice is, in many cases, inseparable from the healing.